Yeah, and I mean, one of the tools that we offer is Database Health Monitor, and there is a free version, but it's it works so well to, track your backup success. It alerts you on failures that have come through, and it monitors those restore test results for you as well.
Yep. And one way to do that in Database Health Monitor, we have our alerting module, and we can go set up alerts for different things like things in the error log or failed restores or backups or failed check DB. And if any of those things happen, we get an alert that there's a problem there. So some best practices to consider here is to test different restore scenarios. Full restores, point in time, restores to alternate servers. What are the different scenarios that you might come across that you're going to run into? With the point in time restore, that's using SQL Server transaction logs. That does require you to do a full restore. So it's really the same. The point in time is starts out as the same as a full restore. It's just that there's a little bit more work you have to do to get to the right point in time. The other thing to do is to kind of rotate your backup media. That's kind of an old school deal where you actually have media that it's being stored to. Usually now it's being stored to some kind of disk storage somewhere. But if you have multiple locations that it's going to, so oftentimes we'll see that people will do a backup to the local network. And then from that local network, it might get copied to a file server or a backup appliance. And then from there, it may be getting copied to the cloud for some kind of long-term storage. Pick different locations when you're doing your testing, and maybe you only have to do that quarterly, but go pick what's the most difficult one to get to, which usually is like the most worst case scenario. Pull those backups back down and try doing a restore on them and make sure that they work for you. And the key here is document and test the results, including success and failure, how long it took, and any issues that are encountered. You don't want to try and make it all look happy, make it all look good if something didn't happen well, because this is the time to learn. And if you fail at doing the restore at a test run, it's usually no big deal. You just got to try it again until you get it right. But if you fail on that restore on a production live system, that might be the end of your job or the end of the company.
Good news is that's why we're here. And with that, I mean, one of our offerings besides Database Health Monitor is the managed services.
Yep. And with the managed services, usually one of the very first things that we do is we try and understand what the client's backup, recovery point, and recovery time objectives are. And once we understand that, then we can determine, do the backups they currently have in place meet those expectations? And then if they don't, what do we have to change in order to get to those expectations? I know a lot of the time people think they have more robust backups than they really do. And once we really dive in and analyze it, making sure it's good. And the reason we make sure that's good is because with those managed service clients, we're the one they call first when they need a restore. And I don't ever want to have to tell them that we can't restore that backup to meet your expectations.
Yeah, I mean, some of the ways that we can help with that are the proactive monitoring and the automation of, emails and alerting that go not only to one team member, but multiple team members to make sure somebody's always watching for you.
A common one on that is where if somebody takes like an out of sequence backup and it's going to break the restore chain, so it puts us in a position where we can't restore. For our managed service clients, when that happens, we get alerts to the whole team that's involved on that. And we know we are now in an exposed point where we cannot restore that backup if they need it right now. And it's usually our top priority to get a fresh, full backup run so we can put us back in a position, put the system back in a position where we can do a restore if we have to.
What would you say are some of the specific ways that we can help support for restore testing?
Well, I think first off is just kind of working through it for the first time with a client. Like I did that earlier today. I'd done it with a client with that same client before, but it was the first time with this individual where we just worked through the process and trained them so that they didn't know how to do it. But I think it also involves helping build the right backup strategy so that we know that your backup meets your expectations. If, as a system administrator, you know you've got enough disk space for 3 days worth of backups, but the business manager assumes you've got 3 weeks worth of backups, well, if something fails and you need to go back in time, that's going to be a really difficult conversation to have. So understanding what the expectations are so that we can meet them and then practice different restores to confirm that those expectations are actually being met. Regularly testing of those, but then also disaster recovery training. And then knowing that if you need a restore and you're not super familiar with it, ask for help. Call us in. We can help with that. And it may make the difference between us helping you with a restore on a smaller database that might take 15 minutes rather than someone else working on it that might take 4 or 5 hours while you go figure out how to do it and make mistakes. So I think at this point, let me just talk a little bit about this case study that I'd kind of planned here. So there's a regular client that we've worked with for a number of years. They've got a database that's about 1.5 terabytes in size, and they ran into corruption. Corruption was introduced due to some endpoint protection software that wasn't properly configured, and it was messing up the SQL database files. But that endpoint protection wasn't messing up the backup files or the network location where those backup files were being written to. The corruption was introduced multiple times over a 2-week period, and we didn't know that it was the endpoint protection software causing it at first. It took us a little bit time to figure that out. But instead of taking the system offline and doing a costly corruption repair on that database that had been partially destroyed by that endpoint protection, instead, we did a full restore of that database and replayed all the transaction logs up through the time that the corruption was introduced. And we had the database standing by ready. This was mid-afternoon. And then we kept reapplying those transaction logs throughout the afternoon so that after 5 p.m. when the business closed, that we could take the system offline, activate the new database, and then disable the old database. And we were able to do that with far less than an hour of downtime, and there was absolutely no data loss. It didn't interfere with the business activity during the day. And we also had a backup plan that if something had gone bad during the day, we had a way to recover quickly if it was needed. Had we not had good backups in that scenario, that client would have been down hard. And they would have been down hard for probably a couple days while we had to repair those databases.
So, what would you tell, one of our listeners? How would you get started here?
So, getting started, first thing, you can talk to us, schedule a free 30-minute consult at stedmansolutions.com or stedman.us/schedule. And you can talk to us. We can help understand what your needs are, help you understand if you're close to them or if you're far off, and then help you come up with a plan of how to address that. Another option is you go and understand. We have our backup and recovery course that's available at Stedman SQL School. We'll put a link in the video for that as well. And you could go take that backup and recovery course, and it covers most of plus more than what we've covered in this podcast today. And I think the other is using Database Health Monitor as well in order to be able to track your backups and better understand the overall health of your SQL Server database. Thanks for watching. I'm Steve, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you like it, please click the thumbs up icon. And if you want to subscribe, click subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon to get notified when we have new videos. All right, have a great day.